Understanding the short-term rental model and the biggest lie about Airbnb and one of the biggest misconceptions in the short-term rental industry. See, Airbnb is about easy money. See, people on social media post showing beautiful homes, luxury furnishings, and they show screenshots of revenue. But what you are not seeing is the systems, the operations, the customer service, the challenges, the maintenance issues, the guest complaints, the parties that are being thrown, right? The business closings and everything else behind the scene. So many people believe that Airbnb is simply about owning property and collecting money. Nothing could be further from the truth. See, if you approach the short-term rentals as a hobby, it will eventually become a headache. Now, if you approach the short-term rentals as a business, then it can become a wealth building machine. Now, the first lesson in every successful host must understand is this: Airbnb is hospitality. So Airbnb is not real estate. Airbnb is not interior design. Airbnb is not necessarily customer service. It's all of these things combined. So short-term rentals operate as a hybrid business model. To succeed, you must think like an investor. You also must act like a hotel operator, because in many ways you are. You must serve like a hospitality professional. So when you understand these three roles, you can stop thinking like a landlord and start thinking like a business owner. The shift changes everything. So think like an investor. Most people mainly focus on the property. Successful operators, they truly focus and hone in on the numbers. You see, an investor understands that every property is simply a vehicle. Not either it produces cash flow or it's going to consume cash flow. It's going to do either one. So the furniture does not matter if the numbers don't work. The neighborhood does not matter if the numbers don't work. The emotions don't even matter if the numbers don't work. So as an investor, your job is to answer one question only: will this property produce enough revenue to justify the risk? That's it. So before acquiring a property, you must always evaluate monthly rent or your monthly mortgage. You also have to factor in your utilities, your internet, your cleaning expenses, your furnishings, your supplies, and your insurance. So this property I'm in, I own this property since 2019, and they have some very big expenses. So I have to make sure that I'm budgeting appropriately to be able to keep it this long. But luckily, I use it for corporate housing, and I put in corporate clients. But the goal is not just simply occupancy. See, a property booked every night can still lose money if the expenses are too high. And with this one, since it's so high to operate, you have to be on the money with this. You have to think like an investor. You have to operate as a hotel owner. So most hotels fail because they think they're renting out rooms, right? But guests think they're booking just rooms only, just a hotel. But at the moment the guest arrives, they are, comparing your property to every hotel they've ever visited. Trust me. So they compare the cleanliness, they look at the convenience, they look at the communications, they look at the comfort, they look at the check-in experience, they look at your response rate. All of these things. So this means that you're not just managing a property. You are, in fact, operating a hospitality business. So hotels, they have departments that can help with this. So successful STR business must have departments too. Operations department that will handle your guest communications, whether that's you or an assistant that you hire. Also, you need a system in place to handle your check-ins or your check-outs. Now, some systems like Hostfully help with this, and they even can help schedule your house cleaning. So a lot of times, house cleaning is a big area. So they handle things like your cleaning. They also handle laundry, which takes a lot of time. They also handle your inventory and to make sure things aren't missing, such as towels, pictures, and things aren't broke. So they handle quality control as well. Now, your maintenance department, they cover repairs, they cover your inspections, or even if your refrigerator needs a new filter, right? Certain things, or your air filter. They also can do preventative maintenance. Now, you also need a marketing department, which handles photography. They handle your listing optimization, your reviews, because either you're getting booked basically on your reviews. They handle your pricing strategy. Your accounting department is vital because they're going to handle your revenue tracking. They're going to handle things like your expense management, your taxes, and your financial reports. And I understand many of us as beginning entrepreneurs and owners, we do this ourselves. So we have to really hone in on this area because your financial reporting is very important, especially the more your business grows, the more financial literacy becomes necessary. So at first, you may wear every hat, right? Now, eventually, successful operators build systems and the business runs without them. So serve like a hospitality professional. Hospitality is the art of making strangers feel comfortable. Y'all got that? So a great host understands something very important, that guests remember the property. They remember the experience, and people never forget the way you made them feel. And that's why they write a strong review or a weak one about you. People always remember how they were treated. They always remember, did you answer quickly when they had a question, right? How long did it take them to get the Wi-Fi, right? And even, did you communicate to them clearly, right? Did you make them feel welcome, or did you rush them, right, when you were answering questions? So hospitality is what turns a guest into a repeat customer. Hospitality is what creates 5-star reviews. Hospitality is what separates average host from elite and super host, okay? Understanding guest psychology. One of the most important skills in this STR business is understanding how guests think. Most complaints are predictable. Most bad reviews, honestly, they're preventable. See, the key is you must understand their expectations. Now, guests expect simple things like comfort. Is your mattress hard, right? Or is it soft? Is your place clean, right? Will they have a good night's sleep at night? So one of the things I ended up getting like a Purple King mattress, and people actually review the mattress. They'd be like, man, that bed was so soft. What is it? They ask about it, right? So that is very important. Clean sheets are very important, right? If they see a nick of something on there, it could be a problem. What about the functional climate control? Was that easy to operate? So never underestimate the power of a good night's sleep, y'all. That can help your reviews. Cleanliness will always help your reviews, right? And that's a major bonus. And it's not the minimum thing that you do. It's a standard. You better have that in place. So guests expect spotless bathrooms. They expect for your kitchen to be clean. They want to look in the microwave. They want to look in the refrigerator, and it should look good. It should smell fresh, right? The surfaces should be sanitized. So a guest may, overlook outdated furniture, but they rarely overlook dirt. Okay? So communication. Guests want confidence. They want to know how to check in. They also want to know how to access the property, just simple questions that they may have. So they want to know what to expect. So since silence creates anxiety, communicate regularly to build trust. So the best host communicates before guests need information. They already tell you what the Wi-Fi is before they even ask, right? So you're being assertive. Clarity. Guests expect to really match the listing. The photos should look like the listing itself when they walk in. The amenities should be the same. And the rules must be accurate. And they must be somewhere where they can see it. So if you underdeliver on this, guests will be very disappointed. And this will remove you away from 5-star reviews. So guests complain when these certain root causes happen. When the property was not pictured properly, right? It didn't look the same when they got in there, right? That's a root cause of a lot of complaints, right? Misleading photos. Professional photography should highlight strengths without creating unrealistic expectations. Honesty creates trust. The property was dirty, right? That's a big root cause of a negative review. Inadequate cleaning standards. One missed detail can ruin an otherwise a perfect stay. So successful hosts inspect rather than assume. Check-in was difficult. That's the root cause of a negative review. I've got one just for not showing up on time, right? So guests should never feel confused upon arrival. The simpler the process is, the better the experience. Basic items were missing. That's a root cause for a negative review. Incomplete preparation. You see, every property should have a certain standard. So you want to have an inventory checklist so that house cleaner can go through it, make sure everything is checked so that guests can have their expected essentials. So when essentials are missing, frustration begins immediately. What if you don't have no toilet paper and they got to go get their own? You see, that's a problem, and that's an essential item. So understanding now the money, let's talk about what matters most to many entrepreneurs. The money, the dollars, right? The revenue. So revenue is driven by 4 primary factors. Occupancy, right? That measures how many nights your guest has the property booked. More booked nights equal what? More revenue, more money, right? However, occupancy alone does not generate profitability, right? Because that also depends on your nightly rate. So your nightly rate determines how much you can earn per reservation, right? And in the hotel business, that's your RevPAR, okay? So pricing too low leaves money on the table. Pricing too high can reduce occupancy. So successful hosts learn to find that balance, that sweet spot, right? So their average rate per night can be as high as it can be without missing any dollars. So your cleaning fees, don't forget those. If they're too high, that can cause a problem, but the right price will keep guests coming in and they won't give you a negative review behind it. So properly structured cleaning can actually increase your profits because of the reviews. So make sure this is not overlooked. I can't stress enough how important your cleaning team is. So make sure guests sometimes will expect an early check-in, late checkout. Are you prepared for that? Make sure to put pet fees in your listing. Event fees. I just dealt with that. Somebody booked a reservation and they thought that they could throw a party there, right? A birthday party. No, that's an event fee that I had to make sure I had to point that out in the rules and make sure that was clearly stated. Because if not, the guests want to, think that they can book it and have a party there. So you want to make sure your monthly revenue is looking like this. Your nights booked times your nightly rate. So bookings time, cleaning fee is included as well. So let's look at this example. 22 nights booked at $150 a night. So that's 22 times $150. That equals $3,300. So 6 bookings with the $100 cleaning fee. So that's 6 times 100. That's an additional $600. So total monthly revenue is $3,900. Simple, right? However, revenue is not profit, as we all know. And many new hosts make the mistake of celebrating revenues while ignoring the expenses, right? That's your P&Ls, right? Your profit and loss. So a mature business owner understands to focus on the net profit, right? What he's making after expenses are pulled. So revenue, that's vanity, but profit, that's reality. So the monopoly lesson here is many players will focus on pass and go, right? Collecting that $200, while the wealthy player focuses on acquiring assets and generating income with buying houses and hotels. So the same principle applies in short-term rentals. The property is not the goal. Cash flow is the goal. You gotta understand that booking is a good goal, but it's not the main thing. Profitability is the main goal, right? The guest is not the goal. Of course, they are important, but repeat business and 5-star experiences is the goal. So winning in this STR industry means creating a business that produces income even when you are not personally working every hour. So that is how you begin moving from your labor income to asset income. This is how you buy back your time. So this is how you win the monopoly of life, y'all. Your action step moving forward. I want you to take a sheet of paper and create an organizational chart for your STR business. List every department, all of the operations, such as the house cleaning, the maintenance, the marketing, and the accounting. And don't forget that hospitality, okay? That's a part of this. So next, grade yourself from 1 to 10 on how you did in each area. Identify your personal strengths so that you can operate and work in them. And identify your weaknesses so that you can delegate them. The fastest way to grow your business is to improve the departments that are currently limiting your success. Always remember this. You are not simply managing a property. It's not just about management. You are building a business, and it starts with strong infrastructure. And a business creates wealth. Y'all got that?